All right, everybody, welcome back to episode 19 of the Everybody But Me show, where we explore why Katie, Dom, everyone, Phil, are in a relationship, and I'm not. It's everybody but me. But we have a special guest here to try and get to the root of it. We have my guy, Yats, known as the Inner Yats on Instagram. And Yats is a relationship guru. He works through trauma. He uses the word reparenting a lot. And we are going to take a deep dive today. And I'm excited because this is like free therapy. I don't have to pay for this one. But
oh, damn it, I should have charged you.
Yeah, you should have charged me, Yats. But more importantly, just to learn. And I loved our pre-call and our pre-meeting before this, and just learning about you and just seeing how passionate you are about this topic, Yats. I'm excited to dive deep in here with you. And hey, let's let it loose, man. Let's learn.
Absolutely, man. Thanks for having me on here. You know, I was just telling my team yesterday, they were all excited that I was jumping on this call naturally. And by the way, I love you, but I have not watched The Bachelor. But a friend of mine reached out to me today. He's like, shouldn't you talking to Tyler? He's from The Bachelor. I was like, that's great, dude. What do you want me to do? He's like, ask him about XYZ. So I was like, I don't know if I'm allowed to do that, man. So, but I just wanted to say to you genuinely that you have an amazing team and you are a very down-to-earth guy. So I think, and that reflects on the team that you have and the work that you're doing. And so I feel grateful to even be here, you know, and share the work that I'm doing.
No, man, it is awesome to have you on here. It's awesome for you to share your knowledge, because not only I will need it, but, you know, maybe Kate or Don, but definitely some listeners. And I've learned every time that when we open up, our listeners are able to relate with us and able to grow with us and learn with us. So, you know, I'm going to be super vulnerable here and dive in this thing with you, because I want to learn, I want to grow it. I hope everyone can grow with us. So.
Yeah, man, that, you know, the best way to teach is really to mirror what you're going through, you know, and I found the same thing, that when I share with people the fact of, like, you know, the things that I've been through, the relationship pains and traumas, it does two things. One is it makes me less afraid of my past. It makes me less afraid of my vulnerability. It helps me take more ownership of it. And two, just as you said, it makes someone else just feel like, oh yeah, you know, I'm not the only one in the room who's gone through this. And that gives everybody a level of comfort that allows healing to move forward so much faster, you know?
Yep. Yeah. No, I'm excited to dive in here with this. And typically we always start the show with a hard-hitting question from Katie. But
I'm going to pass the torch to you today.
She's passing the torch to you because we feel like you are going to have the questions.
Do I get a minute to do some quick push-ups? Like, holy shit, now there's pressure on me. I'm kidding. No, you know, actually, the funny thing about hard-hitting questions is the reason why I like them is because they give you an insight into something of your life you may not have heard or paid attention to. That's why it's so hard, right? If it was something so obvious and easy, like, you know, how to put on a shirt every day, how to do something else, like that stuff just becomes like conscious programming. It's too easy. So when we answer these hard questions, we go back into the parts of our lives that, like, we're like, whoa, shit. You know, now I can really figure out something about myself. So I'm happy to throw that at you. Whenever you're ready, just let me know. When you've warmed up, stretched your hip and your hamstring, I'm ready to go.
I've been preparing myself all day for this, so bring it on.
All right. I think one of the most powerful questions I could ask you, it may sound simple, but what has been the most painful moment of rejection that you've had in your entire life?
I got one. I mean, this one comes right away. So I'm going to share this with everybody. But first, we're going to go to a song to get this thing going. Yats, you got a song?
Do I got a song?
Like a favorite song you've been listening to, or one of your all-time favorite songs?
Oh my God, I'm sexy and I know it.
Oh, hey! There we go. Get the party started.
Not too much. I apologize.
I like it, Yats.
Nothing like building up that confidence.
Yeah, I love this. Love this song.
All right, we are back right now. We are live again here with Yats. We're about to dive deep. We're talking about trauma. We're talking about our past. And Yats, why don't you bring up the hard-hitting question one more time?
Yeah, man. Are you loose? And
I'm loose, man. I'm already on glass number 2 of wine right now, so I'm ready to do this.
That's impressive.
What is the most painful moment of rejection that you've experienced in your life?
Yep. And this one pops up right away. And this answer is going to be the time that me and Hannah broke it off. And when I was trying to propose to her for the finale of The Bachelorette. And it's not because we broke it off, like she broke it off of me or anything like that. Like, I cried. And it was because that point in my life with football, with everything I've done, you know, trying to become the starting quarterback, trying to become, you know, play in the NFL, everything I've done in my life, I was always like this close. I was always so close. And I could never bridge that gap, you know, and I was just like, damn, this is happening again and again and again. And I cried. I bawled my eyes out. I went back to the hotel room and I told my producer, leave me alone. I need a 12-pack of beer and I need her computer so I could listen to Juice WRLD, listen to his album Goodbye and Good Riddance, and just sat in that bathtub for 2 hours and cried my eyes out and then kind of got myself back to, like, you know, a better place, you know, because that beat me up. But it was just my life, man. I've always been this close in everything, and I just keep falling short. And, you know, I try to tell myself now, like, which is part of it is true, is every time I have fallen that short, it was just something leading me to a different direction. And that's how I've taken it since. Like, that rejection happened because it needed to happen so I can be in this direction now.
Yeah. You know, one thing I want to say to you before I dive deep is, and I've said this on my work, when you're in a place where you're more grounded and you have a healthier understanding of yourself, rejection starts to look like redirection. That's all it really is, to be honest. It's about changing our focus from something that we are so attached to and want so bad, not necessarily knowing if it is the best thing for us or not. But it's not really the pain of not having it. It is the pain of how much we attach to it and then don't have it that really causes us that big problem.
Yeah.
Now, something I do in my work, which, you know, it's called compassionate inquiry. It is a psychological therapeutic process by which you help someone discover further as to why something hurts so much by going backwards. So I want to ask you, from where you said, like, you know, those moments kept hurting and you went a little further back because you were so close each time. You were just about there. What does it make you feel when you're just about there and you don't get what you really want? What does it make you feel inside? And I want you, the best you can, not to think about what it should make you feel or what it make a person feel, but what it makes you feel inside.
Yeah.
And you can use any words to describe it, even colors if you like.
Yeah, no, I mean, I immediately think of when I lost the quarterback job at Wake Forest. Went to my room and cried, you know, because like that was my whole life. My whole life is what I identify as a football player, quarterback. Like, I let myself down, I let my family down, I let everyone down, you know, and all the work I put in to get into that position and to that point in my life. Like, I thought I did everything right to get there, you know, and then for that rejection to happen, bro, it broke me, you know, like
Did it?
Yeah, I mean, I was defeated. You know, and the hardest part too was not just then when that happened. It was, you know, the rest of the season was shaky. I ended up getting kicked off the team, right? And then now I'm living in a hall room with all football players, or a hallway with all football players, and now they're all at practice doing the thing which they love together, and I'm by myself, and I'm just like sitting there like in a hole, just going deeper and deeper and deeper into a hole. And then you follow that up, like when I got cut by the Ravens, right? Like when I got cut by them and I came home, I was like, damn, I'm a loser. Like my dad, you know, my mom, like I let them down. And then I'm thinking, I didn't even want to go to my girlfriend's house. She lived two streets away from me. I didn't even want to go over to her house because I don't want her parents to see me. I'm a failure. I'm a loser. You know what I mean? And like and she was trying to get me out of this hole, and I was just so deep and depressed into a hole because all I identified was Tyler, the football player, and I didn't think I was anything else. And those were the darkest. And then everyone pushed me to go back and play football.
Right.
And I didn't want to anymore because I knew how hard it was to get my foot in that door. And that was the most depressing time of my life, was trying to play football again because I was doing something for somebody else and not for myself.
So, you know, this brings me to two important questions, Tyler, from what you've talked about. Do you think the feeling that you had when you got cut by the team, even when your journey on The Bachelor didn't work out, when you got cut by the Ravens, do you think it left you with this common feeling of just not being good enough?
Yeah. And like, and that feeling translates into my relationships as an insecurity.
Right. Exactly. So now what is, you talked about the next piece where you said, when I tried to go back to, football and everybody was pushing me to get into it. Do you think the second part of that journey was trying to prove yourself, even though you really didn't want to be there? Everybody else was, go there, man, try and do it. And you were so depressed because who you really wanted to be in that moment was not who you're really trying to be.
No. And I was just going through the motions,
Right.
Like I was just texting my girlfriend because she was my girlfriend. I was just talking to her because she was my girlfriend. I was going to work because I had to do it. I was training because I had to do it. I feel like I had no choice in any of it. I was just doing it for other people.
You feel empty, right? You feel like you're doing the stuff you have to do, but you're not motivated, you're not connected, you're not grounded. In fact, in those moments, we forget who we really are because the rejection takes us all the way back to this really painful place that says to us, this demon inside of us that says, you're not fucking good enough, man. Like, why are you trying to do this? Like, why are you trying to push yourself? Who are you trying to prove? Like, what are you trying to prove to everybody? You know how many times you failed? You know how many times you've tried and you've gotten knocked down, man? Like, just stop. And that's that part of us that continuously tries to play into us, which relays the same feeling each time, that no matter what I do, no matter how close I get, I'm just not good enough.
Yeah.
So I want to ask you another question based on that, since we've got to this feeling of not being good enough. What does not feeling good enough feel like inside?
It's just, I think it's a lonely feeling. It's definitely like an empty, because like everyone, this might go into ego right here, but to everybody, I'm some big, strong, this and that. But at the end of the day, I'm just the same person that puts my pants on the same way you do, and like we were talking about this the other day. I said, we were talking about love languages and words, and I said words of affirmation are so important to me in my last relationship because I never felt good enough and I was insecure the whole time in that relationship.
Yeah. And you hit on a good point here. And I want to ask you, when you were growing up, were you really exposed to a lot of words of affirmation? Did people show up for you and tell you and relay that energy to you through either actions, through showing up emotionally, through words, and show you that you were special and show you that even without you being part of the Ravens, even without you winning the Bachelor, without any of that, that you're still amazing because you're you?
Yeah. No, I think growing up, it was never many words of affirmation between me and my parents. It was just like tough love, like if I did good, it was because I was supposed to do good,
Yeah.
Exactly. And I think, I always got the other end of it. I got the negative words, you know what I mean? To get my foot out of my ass or do the right thing,
Right. Exactly.
But, and I think maybe that's part of it. And my parents are no one to blame.
No.
Because, like my dad, he never had a dad. He never had much of his mom died when he was 21. So it's like, he never had anyone to show him how to bestow love, but he loved me the best way he could. I know that, But
even then, when you say that, and do you mind if I explain some science about why what we feel when we're growing up is so important?
Yeah.
All right. So you said something beautiful, which you said, it's not really my dad's fault because he showed up the best way he could. And that's right. But the best way he could may not have been enough for what you needed. And that's okay to accept too. It doesn't mean that he was a bad dad. It doesn't mean that he was a monster. It doesn't mean that who he was not what wasn't, what you exactly needed in that moment. It just means that maybe he wasn't capable for what you deserved growing up. And this is the truth we need to understand about parenting. In North America, for example, most of the men who've come from this post-war period and this industrialization period have been prioritized. Their lives have been prioritized around having a secure job, whether it was the military, whether it was growing the industry, whatever else. There was no room for them to sit and consider their own emotions and who they really are.
Yep.
So now when they have children, you taking people who for 30, 40, 50 years of their life have not even realized or received a hug. My dad, believe it or not, his own dad used to hammer his toes when he made a mistake. And my family comes from a long line of military men. Now, for a lot of people, that's like, whoa, what the fuck? But for my dad, that was so normal because he experienced it every day. But what it told him was that I am some kind of bad child. I'm somewhat not good enough because whatever I do, I'm not getting what I really want, which at the end of the day, for you, is words of affirmation. For me, maybe a hug and a kiss and just like support. It's just that undying support and love just for who we are. Now, when we're young, what happens is we don't recognize, and we should recognize, that everybody in a relationship has their own traumas and stories. Would you agree to that? So like in all relationships we've been in, like everybody has their own story they bring to the table, right?
Yep.
It's no different with a parent and child relationship. But when we grow up with this idea naturally, because we're meant to depend on them, that they are perfect and that they are superheroes. In fact, the science behind it is when a baby is born, it doesn't have a developed enough forebrain. The forebrain is the part of your brain that actually helps you distinguish between right and wrong, good and bad, logic, reasoning, all of that stuff. So when a baby runs up to its father or its mother and wants love, which is a natural necessity for the child to feel a sense of security, but instead the father just pushes away the baby because he doesn't know how to hug the baby. The father instead tries to focus on his work. The father or the mother are emotionally unavailable or absent. The baby can't say, oh yeah, of course, this is because my dad had so much trauma growing up. His own dad beat him, blah, blah, blah. He doesn't know that.
Yeah.
So the baby just simply says, I'm not good enough, and so I'm not getting it.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the concept of what we call neuroception, is that we create the identity of ourselves growing up based on how we observe the world treating us. So if our self-worth and our self-esteem that we have today, like, is bothering or hurting us or limiting us, it's because that was created when we were in our like developing years. That's the first identity we had of ourselves. And it was based on observing how the world showed up for us or didn't show up for us. So the breakup with Hannah, for example, or the rejection from, the Ravens and the teams that you were with was only that painful because it reminds you of the past. It reminds you of the moments of when you were a child and when you were growing up and you wanted that love and you went to ask for it, which you may not even remember, but your inner being, your nervous system remembers. But when you went to ask for it, you went to try and get it and you didn't. And every one of those moments made you think, man, I'm not good enough. I'm so close to getting this from my dad. I'm proving myself. I'm doing good at sports. I'm like proving myself to this thing. I'm getting on TV. I'm so close to getting their love, so close. But every time I'm there, they just push me away. And that just replays our whole life until we learn to heal it.
So how do you take that step to heal it?
So the science behind, like I said, is when we're growing up as babies, our subconscious mind is most active. That's the time of our lives that absorbs everything, right? Which is why a baby can like learn 5 languages in like a few months. A baby can freaking learn to walk. That itself is crazy. Most of us can't even walk after a couple of drinks, and a baby's like from nowhere has gotten up to walking, to running, to crawling, to doing everything. That's how fast they absorb. But they also absorb, like I said, how the world treats the baby and creates that image. So if you want to be able to correct that, if you want to be able to heal that part of yourself, that's the lack of the self-worth, the lack of confidence, you actually have to go back into your subconscious mind and reparent that baby, reparent that younger individual inside of you. Now, when I say this to people, for the first time, they're like, what kind of bullshit is this? I'm only here right now. I'm an adult. I can understand everything. Sure, but your subconscious mind is almost closed. And your subconscious mind is what absorbs everything. Like when you're a baby, that's the part you really need to change. That's the part that has your beliefs. That's the part that has all the memories of rejection. That's the part of you that determines how good or how bad or how valuable or worthy am I. So to do that, we use a process called reparenting. It's the process of going back to that time of who you were and showing up for that little Tyler, for that little Yats, for that little whoever in the way you really needed but couldn't get. That's what it's really about. And it's so incredibly powerful because the more you appeal to your subconscious in a healing way, which is in the back of your mind, the more you like feed it all this information that I'm lovable, I'm worthy. You take every moment that you can remember, even if you don't remember the rejection, but you remember the feeling. And you go in there and you're like, I love you. You're so special. You're so valuable. It doesn't matter whether you got the basher. It doesn't matter whether you got the raven. It doesn't matter whether you got first or last. I love you just because of who you are. In fact, you are special just because of who you are. And the more you do that with the feeling, it creates something called brain and heart coherence, which then taps into your subconscious and changes what you believe. Now, and research shows that you can take the same person who has done the subconscious programming. You can put them in the same place around the Bachelor, for example, or the Ravens when you're trying to prove yourself. And not only could they have a different result, But whatever the result is, it will not break down their sense of self-worth. Rejection simply becomes redirection for this person because they realize I am so valuable. The universe loves me so much. God loves me so much. The world loves me so much that if this is not working out for me, boom, it's showing me something else that is. And I'm more than happy to move in that direction with my chest held high, my chin up, and a smile on my face.
Wow.
Yeah.
So
Locked in.
yeah. So Yats, what kind of practice techniques or things that you can do to tap into that subconscious? Like was that meditation? Is that
Good question.
I'm just throwing out hypnotherapy. I'm just throwing out things that I've heard of.
Right. I'm going to ask you all another tough question. You guys mind? I love being interactive, but I'm going to ask you a tough question. How many of you meditate on a daily basis?
0.
Don't.
Okay. If I was to make you meditate tomorrow, how many of you would naturally dislike it just because you're not used to it?
All of us.
I've tried multiple times. I just like get uncomfortable while I'm like sitting there in silence. I'm like, I need to be doing this and I need to be doing this.
Exactly.
But every time when you meditate, every time your mind wanders, you have to pull it back in, right?
It's not that simple. And that's just like throwing some spice on the top and saying like, okay, just do this and it'll be fine. It actually isn't that simple because what happens is, so where we are sitting now, we're in a place called like our beta brainwaves. So the beta brainwaves are very active, but they don't absorb. So this is not where you get into your subconscious. To get into your subconscious, you need to slow down your brainwaves to get into an alpha state. That's where meditation really takes you. When you get into the alpha state, you can influence your belief systems, but this is not easy. So let me ask you guys a question. Tyler, what's your favorite exercise to do?
Bike.
The bike.
Or chest press.
Oh, what?
Or chest press.
Chest press. All right. So if I took you to a gym, right, and there was all the equipment that was there, but there was a chest press, what would you naturally be drawn to first?
That bench, that chest press.
Yeah. And if you were to chest press against someone who wasn't used to chest pressing, don't you think that you'd be able to go much further than they could?
Of course.
What do you chest press, by the way? Tell us. All the people listening out there, what do you psychologically chest press? And then what is your weight chest?
Psychologically, I'm around 600. But in the real world, I'm like 315, 320.
Damn. Well, those big muscles. For all of you, those of you who are on the radio and you can't see him the way I can, his chest is like tearing through his shirt right now.
They can see him on his Instagram.
Build me back up, Yats.
The reason I asked you this question is because you are naturally drawn to do what you do and you will do it well. Yep. That is what we call habit creation in the mind, right? Now, if I was to give you something new, your ego, which is this old prehistoric protective identity of you, I don't want to get too detailed into that. It's not just the part of what we all think is like, oh, I'm too cocky, I'm too confident. That's one way it shows up. It can show up as a people pleaser, as a victimizer, as like anything. So your ego will want to prevent you from change. And this is because your brain loves doing things in the fastest way possible because then it's just easy. It's used to it. It repeats it constantly. So now if I have to throw something new in your way, your brain's going to be like, whoa. This is like too complicated. It's going to use too many things. And that's the fastest way for it to discourage you from doing it. So for me, I've had to create a practice of meditation where I meditate for up to an hour and a half every morning. But this is not just because, and I tell my students this all the time.
Is that not a nap? Is that not a nap yet?
Is it on an app?
Yeah.
No, is it not a nap? He's saying, isn't that a nap?
Yeah.
It might be, to be honest. Then technically I meditate for around 8.5 hours every day.
So you meditate for an hour and a half every morning.
Yes.
That's incredible.
And the funny thing is, it's not because I just want to, it's because I need to.
Mm-hmm.
I was raised in an environment where I had a lot of psychological trauma that my body and my mind processed. And so for me, as I grew through the years, I recognized that because I wasn't working on this and I wasn't reparenting myself and I wasn't going back and soothing that inner child, it was showing up in ways that were, in truth, fucking up my relationships. I was getting I needed too much of like attention. I needed too much of like a constant energy, whether it was a push and a pull. I was addicted to great sex, but like not to stable relationships, like stuff that I know most of us can identify with out there. Mm-hmm. And it's because my nervous system was so used to instability and dysregulation. So to be able to discover who I truly was, I needed to start slowing down my nervous system. To slow down my nervous system, I had to slow down my brain. And so when you first start doing your meditations, naturally your brain's going to be like, no, we don't need this stuff. It's cool. Let's just stick to the way things were. That's great. You have to be able to break through that threshold of that barrier. And the best way to do it, honestly, is repetition.
Yeah.
So repetition at the right times.
I was just about to ask you this. Why does our brain always push us to go back to what's comfortable?
Because it's easier for it to work, right?
Yeah. And the science behind it is every time you do something in a certain way, your brain has what you call, like the nerves have what you call neurons. And neurons are like, think about it like when you drive from work to home, right? And if you know there's the least amount of traffic on this one particular route, you will take that route every single goddamn day. In fact, then you'll be able to take that route with your eyes closed. Hopefully not because you're driving, but you'll be able to know how to take that route so well because it's what you're used to. It's most efficient. It's the shortest possible way. Now, the crazy thing is, even if it's something bad for you, but it's something you know so well and that you're so used to, your brain will still choose it because your brain's neurons align in that pattern. They become like a pattern. They become like a painting on a wall. It's stuck. It's like this. You can't change it. And because it's like this, you go through the exact same motions of it all the time. In fact, if someone, and here's the craziest thing I tell people, if you believe deep down inside you are not lovable and valuable, your conscious mind, which is your beta brain mind, will say, I want to be in a great relationship. I want to have a wife and kids. I want to have all of this. And if someone who truly was capable of giving that to you came up to you and said, I love you, you would unconsciously sabotage it and push it away. Just so that your subconscious mind can go back to what it was used to and go back to the beliefs of itself. And the beliefs of itself came from when you were young, that you're not good enough unless you prove yourself, that you're not valuable enough just as you are, that you're not lovable unless you actually push or pull or beg or attach to someone for them to prove that love to you. Or on some other ends, that love is so scary, rejection is so scary, don't ever try and get intimate with people. All of that comes from your subconscious mind. And unless you do the healing and the work to change it. So meditating allows you to slow your brain waves. And then after that, you have to go into visualization. When your brain waves are slow and you get into what they call the total present, science actually shows that you can influence what's in your subconscious mind. You can change it from, and here's the craziest fact I'll tell you. Your brain actually doesn't even know in those moments what's true and what's false. So going back to most of those memories, other research shows that up to 50% of the time, we could be making up stuff about us. So when you experience that rejection from the Ravens, for example, your brain can just be telling you you're shit. And that's not true. But it could just be telling you shit. This happened before. It continuously just repeats itself. And most of it may not be true, but your brain will use it as an excuse to stay the same. So to change that, you have to dive into your brain, as we talked about, when it's in those places. And you have to align with who is that little being, that little child, that little version of me that deserves and always deserved me to show up for them. That always deserved love, irrespective of whether they got an A or a C. That deserved love, irrespective of whether they messed up or they didn't. That deserved love, irrespective of whether they rubbed poop on the walls or not. And when we can show up for that little version of us inside, we start to feel so much more secure in our space today and who we are.
So Yats, for a beginner person who's never tried meditation, what's a good starting point for time? Because you said an hour and a half, and immediately I'm like, I don't know if I could.
Our brain's already talking to us saying an hour and a half, I got to work out, I got to do this.
I can't even relax.
I get to work on time.
I got a mean boss. I'm just kidding.
No, because you have to start small, right? With anything, you have to start small so that you don't get in your own way. So what I recommend to my own students, my clients, is first get on a YouTube guided meditation because you're trying to now use more supporting, more support and more supporting information that can make it easier for you. So use a guided meditation, let's say for anxiety, a guided meditation to relax your nervous system, a guided meditation to feel love. So you will hear someone's voice on there, some background music, and you will just be able to tune into that and relax.
Yeah.
Now after...
Can you do me, but also everyone else listening a favor? Send us links that you recommend on YouTube for us to use so I can share them with everybody?
Yeah, absolutely. In fact, we have a whole bunch of inner child meditations that I do, and that's on our YouTube channel.
Amazing.
So I can send that out.
Your YouTube channel, that'd be perfect.
Yeah, absolutely. But they help so much because the first, I would say, target 5 minutes. 5 minutes or 8 minutes, but you have to lock it down. You have to be disciplined that every 5 minutes when I wake up in the morning, by the way, another hint, another big tip. When you wake up in the morning and just before you go to bed at night, your subconscious is most active. So that's when you can influence it the most. That's why people meditate first thing in the morning.
I was wondering why they all do that. I feel like I've tried in the morning, but then I accidentally fall back asleep. So I need to figure that part out.
You get it. That's not necessarily a bad thing. It means that your brain is like calming down and allowing you to fall asleep, which is kind of nice. Most people suffer from like insomnia or whatever else when they go through like relationship issues. But the better you get at it, the more you'll be able to stay present and not slip back in. So, you start with those guided ones. After a few weeks, let's say 2 or 3 weeks of getting so used to it, you notice that the noise in your head starts to quieten easier and easier. Then you move away from the guided one and just listen to background sounds. So you put in your headphones and you listen to like maybe a waterfall, maybe something like easy or breezy. And because you're getting better and better, do that again for around 5 to 10 minutes for the next like 4 weeks. As you get better at doing that, now you can take off the sounds and the music, and you can just put in your headphones. So it's cutting out the outside noise, but you're sitting with your own silence. The more you practice it, you're rewiring your brain's pattern gradually. So instead of driving the same route that you take from work to home, you're adjusting yourself a little every day. Then you make 30 minutes for yourself. You go on a nice, beautiful drive to the park. You go through a drive to something else, wherever else. So that when you come to work, you're like, wow, I feel so fucking great. So changing that until you ultimately can become so good at it, that's just habit recreation. That's what we do with anything. So.
Damn, yes.
Yeah.
We got work to do this week,
We got work.
No, that's awesome. Yeah. Yes, why don't we hop into a call hop into a song real quick, and then let's get back to it.
Yeah.
This is incredible, dude.
Beautiful. Thank you, guys.
We're back. Guys, this has been incredible so far. You got tons of people in here talking about therapy and everything. So I think you're really hitting home right now, Yats. But let's go into it. Let's keep this thing rolling here. Kate, you got some questions?
We just had some write-ins that you can maybe comment on. So the question today was, what did you learn from your parents that has positively or negatively impacted your relationships? So these are some of them. One says how unstable and non-realistic happy endings are.
Yeah, sorry, do you want me to comment on that?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think anything that you add judgment to will stick. So if someone says that, I don't necessarily believe in happy endings, but I'm open to them, it's one thing. But if a parent is like, happy endings don't exist, you can't ever be rich, you can't ever really trust a partner because they did X, Y, and Z, it's always a reflection of the wound that parent is carrying. But the child will absorb that wound because that's just who they're listening to continuously, right? That's how generational trauma, I don't know if you guys have heard this word, continues from year to year to year, whether it's a fear of a particular race, a fear of a particular food, a particular animal, a particular type of relationship, fear of optimism, believe it or not. All of these things get carried based on the intensity with which a parent puts it down.
Well, it brings up a point I've been like, I don't know, I keep seeing this over and over and over again lately, is like when things are going good, our brain tricks us into falling back into thinking something bad is going to happen and just or reverting back to something that is bad because it's comfortable.
Right. That's amazing that you caught that. That's what we call self-sabotage, and it's an element of self-doubt. If things are going well, we're like, things are too good to be true, or I don't know when the shoe's going to drop, or any of that stuff, because it's in truth, when we were a child, it's because that was a protection mechanism.
Yeah.
When things were going really well and something happened and our parents suddenly showed up in a difficult way, it suddenly broke that level of love or acceptance we were getting. So immediately it was followed by rejection. Now, when you do that multiple times, you start to realize I'm seeing a pattern here where my parent shows up well, things are really working out, and then boom, it just goes badly for me. So let me protect myself by predicting it.
Yeah.
And so again, what we're doing is we're giving the brain more excuse to create familiarity in the way it used to do things by predicting the same pattern so much to the extent that we will make the pattern happen true.
And I find myself doing that with when I'm dating now,
Right.
is I look at somebody because maybe they remind me from the slightest reason, because it could be from the same area or hang around the same crowd, that I'm like, oh, she's just like her.
Exactly.
Like it could be great dates, but I'm like, oh, this is just going to end up where that one ended up,
Right. Or even when you go to a tryout, since you've been experienced that, like you go to your next try and you're like, oh shit, I know it's going to go bad right now. That coach is going to drop me like this. This is going to happen like this.
Yeah. I know that feeling. I know like going into it, you're like, I already know how this is going to end up, but I just got to get through it to get through it, Yeah. And as that's athlete, the worst feeling in the world.
As an athlete, I used to be a professional soccer player. And as an athlete, that's what injures yourself is when you go in and you're like, it's not going to work out. I know it's not going to work out, but I'm going to push to try and prove myself or to try and just like, make a point here. And then you end up like tearing your hamstring, you end up sabotaging yourself, and that's how it doesn't work. In fact, I want to add one more piece. Those moments are perfect moments for reparenting. People ask me, when is it, Yats, that I can do reparenting? Those moments when you start to feel sensitive, you start to feel a little fearful, you start to feel like, oh my God, rejection is coming up. Before you have the outcome, catch yourself, stop yourself, put yourself in a room, separate from all the your phone, especially Instagram or social media, especially in that moment, sit with yourself and just put on a little soothing music and say, I am safe. I am loved. I'm so beautiful. You can go back to thinking of that little version of you and say, little baby Yats, Tyler, whoever you are, no matter what you do, you're going to be loved. Nothing can ever break you down. Even if this doesn't work out for you, I'm here for you. No matter what happens, I'll be here for you.
Yeah, it's
when you do that, it creates, you go into the same action with a completely different energy.
When do you feel most confident in yourself?
Me?
Yeah.
Oof, that's a good question. When I'm speaking and when I'm on stage and when I'm speaking, I just get into like this place where I feel like I'm in tune with who I really am. But that requires me also, before I get into it, to meditate. I'll meditate for 5 or 6 minutes just before I came on this call. I'll sit and I'll visualize and I'll create in my mind a successful idea of this call, whatever that looks like. And then I'll give myself permission to feel it. That's what's more important. That's what we call in science the heart and the brain coherence. When the vibration of your brain and the electromagnetic waves of your heart find a similar wavelength, that's when they align. Now, this same brain-heart coherence also happens when we are in extreme doubt. When our brain is like, oh my God, it's not going to work out. And my heart's like, I'm so scared, I'm so scared, I'm so scared. Boom, it doesn't work out. Mm-hmm. So tapping into this on the positive end actually creates a different outcome.
Wow.
Love that.
I was listening to and this is where that I can tell you this rings true, is Saquon Barkley, right? Blew his knee out and everyone's dogging him, right? He's not going to be back. He's not going to be good for the Giants. And Fred Taylor sat him down before the season in an interview. He goes, Saquon, I want you to watch your old highlights and remember who you were. And I want you to feel yourself running into the end zone. I want you to remember you making that cut and making that juke and remember who you are. You know, and then he went out there and he blew up the league this year. He's killing it this year because he's getting back to who he was. And he felt the pressure. He was nervous. He was scared. He wasn't going to be who he was. He's doing it.
Yeah. There's two things from this. Have you noticed how college athletes, when they perform, right, they perform so much different than when those same athletes go into the NFL, the NBA, elsewhere, their attitudes change. Everything is so different. Because what they're performing for at that age, before the pressure of money comes into them, before the advertising issues, the contract stuff or whatever, they're just performing so that they can show who they are.
Yep.
And they believe that. And, have you guys watched Jerry Maguire?
Yeah, show me the money.
Yeah, yeah, show me the money, man. Where's my quan at? my favorite moment is when the guy's crying on TV and he's like, don't nobody know the pressures that comes with $45 million. God damn that. But it's true. It's funny. When you think about it more and more, there's a lot of pressure that comes with it. A lot of expectation, a lot of judgment, a lot of criticism. Now you're out there for everybody to throw shame at. And if you don't feel sure of who you are, your ego will invite that criticism as a reason to break you down.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's so insightful to hear everything you're saying, because I feel like even for me, similar to Tyler, I do this self-sabotage thing all the time.
Right.
I'm currently in a relationship. I'm the healthiest, or it's the healthiest it's ever been. And I still go to sleep at night sometimes with nightmares. I'm like, something bad's gonna happen all the time.
Yeah.
So this is a really good moment to ask you a question. Are you cool with that if I ask you a question?
Yep.
All right. So in that moment, when it's going so well and you suddenly get afraid, I want to ask you, what are you afraid of?
Rejection.
Okay. So you're afraid that the relationship will either end or the partner will say, hey, I'm sorry, I found something else, so I'm going to leave, right?
Yep.
And what does that make you feel?
It brings me, like, it makes me feel so sad because it brings me back to those times where my self-worth was so low.
Exactly.
And I think I've come so far from that. Like, my friends can tell you, I feel like I've come so far now.
Right.
But it took a while for me to love myself again.
Right.
So.
And you're doing so well, by the way. You should, and it's especially in those moments. Another thing that we're very bad at doing for ourselves is giving ourselves credit, lauding ourselves when we move forward, loving and nurturing ourselves with the small wins of like growing. And because of that, the fears become bigger and bigger, right? But in that moment when you have that fear, you have the perfect opportunity to go inwards to your own self and say, I am so loved, I am so valuable, and I am so safe, no matter what happens. And when you feel that sense of internal security more and more, not only will you feel less fear of the relationship ending, you will then stop trying to unconsciously sabotage it. And then you will put more energy into it growing.
Right.
And it's amazing. It's like, basically, imagine this. Each one of us, and this is what I tell my students, each one of us is like a battery. We only have 100 emotional points, not more, not less. Now, if 60 of those points is spent in fear, is spent in doubt, is spent in like, handicapping or questioning ourselves, we only have 40 of those points for love. And then we question, why am I not having the love I want? Why am I not creating the life I want? So the answer then is not to go look for love in a different place. It's to internally reduce those 60 points of doubt, fear, shame, criticism, anxiety, self-sabotage, etc., to reduce it down to 20 by healing those old demons. Now we have 80 points. And we can put these 80 points into the same love, and the effect is so different and so drastically like more expansive. So it's all about redirecting where we put our emotional energies. And so every time you catch yourself in that fear, that's actually not you. And I say this to everybody listening, you are fucking amazing. You are valuable. You are beautiful. I know I haven't even seen you, but you were created authentically and innately just to be that. It is the conditioning that you went through, the life that you went through that tried to throw blankets on your light to cover it. And so now you don't even know there's a light under all these blankets. So you need to do the work to pull off those blankets bit by bit and let your light just fucking shine.
I need to listen to you every day.
Yeah, you got people in tears in here. You
Yeah,
guys.
I was like, when me and Tay were tearing up, I was like, oh man.
But
But
it's,
it is
all
so
this
true.
stuff.
And
Tay,
I
you got a
think, like,
question?
finding your self-love, I just,
If you want to bring something up, you bring something up.
So I have another write-in that I actually also highly relate to. Tyler can comment on it too, but it's about being like a people pleaser. And I think like growing up, my mom is a huge, still to this day, she's amazing, does everything for everyone, but she's a people pleaser. And
Right.
I became that, but then I was spreading myself so thin that I was like
Yeah.
not even happy, like with my own self. I was doing everything for everybody else, but not myself. And so I, this year, started setting boundaries. But the whole like first 2 months of 3 months, actually even now, setting a boundary, you feel like selfish, or you feel like you have
feels
to
uncomfortable.
explain why you're saying no. So it's like, how do you get past that of like, I know the boundary I'm setting is because it's healthy for myself, but like, how do you get past the fact of not feeling guilty for the person that you're setting the boundary from?
So this is a really good question. I actually wrote for someone's book around this recently, and I titled the chapter People Pleasing and the Unconscious Art of Self-Abandonment, because that's really what people pleasing is. We think that by people pleasing, we're serving the world, but we're constantly not serving ourselves, stretching ourselves thin, as you said, because we're abandoning our own needs to make sure somebody else's needs are met. Before you ask yourself, how can I fix this? You have to ask yourself, why am I doing it? That's what's most important. Now, when you go back and you recognize, remember what I said a lot of time, monkey see, monkey do. So if you continuously observe your mother doing it, that's the conditioning you'll observe. Or you could go to the opposite end, which is another way the rebellious, child development takes place. But let's take this one, for example. Why is it that someone continuously needs to people please? Let me ask you, actually, why do you think that you need to make someone feel better than you would want to feel yourself?
I don't know if it's a matter of like keeping the peace. Like the more I do for other people, the happier they'll be. So then there's no conflict.
Good. So it's not just keeping the peace, it's also about making them happy.
Yeah.
But you want to make them happy so that they like you more, so that they fight with you less, so they challenge you and question and doubt you less. Right? So
but when you start setting those boundaries with people that you usually do everything for, I find that they do question you so much more.
Right. Because they're not used to it. They're used to you showing up in this way where you give them everything you want. If you keep giving me everything I want and suddenly you set a boundary with me, I'm going to be like, wait, who are you? You're so selfish. Where did this come from? I was so used to you. In their minds, they're so used to you being a doormat. Now, when you decide to become like, the queen or a princess, they're going to be like, what the fuck's going on over here? Why are you pushing back on me? Why can't you do this thing that I asked you for? And their ego is going to try and pull you back to who you were because it suited them. Who is or what is the kind of person a people pleaser will attract? Someone who will unconsciously use them, right? Because a people pleaser can't attract a people pleaser, then they're trying to please each other. It makes no sense. So a people pleaser will attract someone who uses them, right?
Yeah.
And what happens when the people pleaser is no longer available for use? What happens to the person who's using? If they haven't increased their consciousness, they're going to be upset.
Yeah.
You're taking away their drug. You're taking away their dependence. So the answer is the biggest problem for a people pleaser is that they attach their sense of self-worth to the external, like a lot of us in different ways, but especially for them in terms of how people show up around them. So the most important thing for them to do first is to change that sense of self-worth to the inside, to be able to recognize each day that they are lovable and valuable and will keep the peace no matter what anybody feels or thinks outside because they are strong, safe, and secure on the inside. The more they practice this and build their sense of self-worth, two things happen. One, they start disconnecting from how much they need the external world to love them or keep the peace or value them. Two, boundaries become so much easier at this point. Because now I can draw a boundary and say, hey, I can no longer show up to take you and your son and your kids and blah, 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 and do all of this for you. And if that person's like, well, I don't like you, then you're like, okay, that I'm okay with that. Because I'm finally choosing me and not choosing you over me. And this is people pleasing is a very tragic thing that comes in. I don't know if you guys have heard of attachment styles, but it comes in because of what we call the anxious attachment, where an individual anxiously attaches to another individual for their sense of value, worth, or love. And this comes again because in our childhood, that individual did not have a strong enough sense of internal love, support, or validation, especially from the parents and the family around. Your answer is so obvious. In your mom showing up for everybody else, she clearly didn't show up enough for herself or for you in that moment. So automatically you recognize that I'm second now to everybody else on the outside. And then you just take over that mantle and carry it on as you move forward.
I think the reason why I'm a people pleaser and is because I grew up with so much conflict and so much fighting.
Right.
Every night of my life at home. You know what I mean? Not every night, but most nights of my life. You know what I mean? That's what you remember. You remember all the shit, you know?
Yeah.
I just remember fight after fight after fight after fight. And I got to the point in my life where I was like, I don't want to fight anymore, you know?
Right.
I just don't do it, you know? Whether it was my girlfriends, whether it was whatever, I would just hold shit in and then one day I would blow up. You know what I mean? And it would all come out.
Right.
You know, at work, having a backbone, you know?
Yeah.
Which Kate gets on me all the time about, you know?
Right.
Because I just don't want to deal with the conflict and I avoid tough conversations.
Right.
I'm so bad at having a hard conversation. It took me 3-4 weeks to fire somebody, which I knew I was firing them. And I kept putting schedule reminders on my calendar to make the call. I
even wrote it out for him.
And I just man, I just don't want to deal with more conflict or more whys or more, you know what I mean? It's just because I did it my whole life. I just had to deal with it. You know what I mean?
So an important question when you're dealing with conflict, because conflict can be a mask and it can be a reason the ego tells us, no, continue with people pleasing so you avoid conflict. What does conflict usually end up for us in? It ends up, if we're on the lower end of our self-worth, it ends up with us feeling bad, us feeling like someone has used us or said something critical, but more importantly, it makes us feel rejected, right?
Yeah.
Makes us feel not loved. That is the key issue. Conflict is not the issue. Conflict can actually be tremendously healthy if you're in a grounded, stable place and you use it as an opportunity to recognize what can I change, improve, or grow with. But when conflict continuously feels like rejection, which is exactly what it does in our childhood, because as a child, remember, you don't have that forebrain. You can't create the logical reasoning to say, how can I improve or grow from this? All you want to know is how can I avoid conflict? How can I avoid conflict? My way to avoid conflict is by making sure my parents feel good. What can I do to make sure my parents feel good? I have to come back with an A on my report card. When I go to church with my mom, she's not pissed off. When I, come back at a certain time or do a certain thing or eat a certain way or wear certain clothes, it makes them feel like safer and grounded. So now you're doing everything with the attachment to what it makes somebody else feel.
Yeah.
But all because we're afraid of that rejection. That's the key element there. So if we increase the level of love we have inside to realize that we can never be rejected by anyone but ourselves first, then we're not afraid of that level of conflict or the level of questioning or challenging or even about going out of our comfort zones.
Amen.
That's a lot to think about. Yeah.
Hey, Yats, I think it's time to open up some callers.
All right.
You want to get some callers in? Let's give this a try. So we're going to try this, y'all. Bear with us. Yats is out of the country, so he's unable to download the app. So we are going to put the phone next to the computer and hope for the best. And we will try to communicate it, make it all work. So here we go. Enable callers. Yes, but also the chat is blowing up. They all want a part 2. They all want you back. So,
oh man,
I mean, this has been incredible. Here we go.
So many thoughts.
I know.
I have so many thoughts.
We're all starting. Everybody in this room, we start meditating tomorrow.
Yes, let's do it together, guys.
Tonight.
Group meditation.
All right, we got our first caller on here. This is Delaney. Delaney, how you doing?
Hi.
Yes, can you hear her?
Yeah, I can hear you.
I can hear her, yeah.
Awesome.
Hey.
What's going on, Delaney?
How are you guys doing? I'm so excited.
Oh, it's great to have you on here. Thanks for listening.
Of course. I actually have a fun proposition for you guys.
Here we go.
Ooh, sounds nice.
So a few weeks ago when you had Jason on, you guys were talking about wedding invites and how it would be fun to maybe crash somebody's wedding.
Yep.
So I was going to invite you guys to crash my twin brother's wedding in February.
Ooh, okay.
Whoa.
You might have to DM us and let us know.
Where's the destination?
Where is it at?
It's super close. It's actually in Tampa. So
Okay.
There we go. Okay, we might be able to make that work.
Yeah.
Wait. Do I get an invite?
Can Yats come?
Here, guys.
Nice, of course.
Of course.
You should make Yats be the officiant. I feel like his blessing will go a long ways.
I'll put on my guru hat.
Yes.
Like head bomb.
Do you got a question for Yats?
What was that?
Do you have a question for Yats by chance?
So I actually have. Wait, what did you say again?
I said, do you have a question for Yats?
I actually was going to comment on what Katie said about boundaries.
Yep.
Because I also had that same issue, and I've kind of learned a lot growing up. And she said that people always question kind of her motives behind the boundaries. And I started viewing boundaries not as a barrier for the other person, but more so as a moment to reflect on, kind of to check yourself, to make sure you're not crossing it yourself. Because I would always be someone to lose myself in relationships, and I would always say yes to things that I really wanted to say no to.
Yeah.
And so it's really helped me not to view it as a barrier for the other person, but really a safe space for me to ask hard questions to myself and ask myself, is this right for me? Is this aligned with my values and morals? And it's kind of changed my mindset on boundaries.
I love that.
That's amazing, Delaney.
Yeah.
That's really good. It's on one of, we do this reparenting program called The Gauntlet, and one of the weeks is about learning and understanding the concept of boundaries. And we're so used to the concept of boundaries, just as both of you talked about, as being a way to push someone else out or keep them away. Whereas a boundary, in essence, is actually created to keep something protected within, rather than keep what's dangerous outside. That's actually the secondary job of a boundary. If you take like a fortress, you take any of those protected walls, they were meant to protect the king, the queen, the kingdom first, and then to focus on keeping on what's dangerous outside. So the more we bring it back to ourselves, again, with that topic of like, okay, how is this showing up for me? Just as Delaney said, how am I showing myself I love myself by drawing this boundary right now? The less we focus on that external. So that's a great point, Delaney.
Hell yeah, Delaney.
Thank
You should host some show too one
Yeah.
day.
Thanks for
Awesome.
calling.
Thank
Thanks
you.
for calling,
Send us the
Delaney.
info on the wedding.
Please do come dance with me.
Heck yeah, we can do that for sure. All right, here we go.
This is our favorite part, Yats, because like
Oh,
our
I
callers
love
will
it.
teach us so much stuff that we don't even think about.
I love it. I love hearing people's stories and stuff. There's always, because everybody's story is so interesting, so unique as well, right?
Yeah.
Sandy, there we go. Oh, Libby mute it, and we'll go Sandy. We'll go you next.
Hello?
Hey, Sandy.
Hi, how are you?
Good. How you doing?
Good.
Where you calling from?
Long Island.
Ah, there we go.
Ooh.
So what you got for us? You got a question for?
From
What'd you say?
a place where you're banned from, Montauk.
Yeah, I need to stay away.
Yes, definitely.
I need to stay away. I'm only allowed to go on Memorial Day weekend now.
No, I just feel like, I mean, I resonate with a lot of stuff that you guys are talking about. Yeah, it's crazy. Like, I don't know about the self-sabotage. I feel like that's been like a majority of my life, pretty much, because of my family being, I mean, I'm the youngest of 3, and my parents got divorced when I was 5. And I don't know if it was for attention or what, but I've just always not done the right thing. I gotten into lots of trouble.
Yeah,
So
me too.
I don't know where that stems from.
Well, I think we do things in order to get a reaction or to get attention, and that's because of the lack of attention
Right.
that we, all the time. You tell a kid not to do something, you turn your back, he's going to do something to get your attention,
Right.
And so I think that just stems from all that, I think divorce especially makes it really tough.
Pleaser, still am, and like lately, I mean, I'm 35 now, but I try to like, if I'm not receiving anything back from the person, then I just take a step back and I'm like, this is exhausting. I can't do it anymore. It's like so upsetting to me.
Well, at least you do that.
Yeah, but
I just keep pleasing.
Same.
But one of the things about what happens when and sorry, who are we talking to again?
This is
so
Sandy.
sorry. Sandy. So Sandy, one of the things that happens to us when we grow up as a child is our brains are developing so fast, so are our nervous systems. And they remember everything. Even though we think they don't, they absorb everything. And so when we go through divorce or when we go through abandonment or when, like for me, I experienced, unfortunately, a lot of physical abuse when I was growing up, my body absorbed it. And so your nervous system naturally gets dysregulated. When you have a dysregulated nervous system and you're exposed to a threat, for example, like when someone either tries to leave you or in essence, also when things are going too well, it's still a threat because it reminds you that things may drop really heavy. Then your nervous system automatically steps in that dysregulated space where it starts to quote unquote act out. And so this is when people's emotions become really heavy, and they can say, I need you, I want you here really bad. Or on the opposite end, when they push someone away a lot. And they're like, why do you keep doing this and blah, blah, blah. And that person's like, why are you making it an issue? And unconsciously, the nervous system wants to get back into that place of what we're used to, of that rejection and that pain, because it's just the way it knows how to react. And so to be able to change that pattern, just as we said, we must learn to physically and mentally soothe our nervous systems, things that are not taught to us in school at all. In fact, one of my greatest lessons in life was to travel out east to India and recognize why meditation, why breathing, why, like you've heard of things like the Wim Hof and all that stuff, why they're so essential for our minds, because through our body, we can calm our mind. Mm-hmm. So if you wake up with a practice of nervous system regulation, of breathing, of calming, of relaxing, you give yourself more of an ability to soothe and love yourself, so that the things like self-sabotage, of like acting out, whatever else, I got kicked out of 4 schools, literally.
Damn.
And I went to 2 boarding schools. So, to get kicked out of boarding school, you gotta be pretty messed up,
Yeah.
But I discovered later on in my life, it was because of that dysregulated nervous system. Like you said, I wasn't getting that love. I wasn't getting like that sense of support and validation inside. So my nervous system was so dysregulated, I needed to act out.
That makes sense.
But what's important for you now is for you, instead of focusing on how your nervous system acts out and it affects a relationship, instead go back to asking yourself, why is my nervous system acting out? When you do that, you'll recognize it's because I feel afraid. I feel alone. I feel like I'm going to lose love. I feel like this person's going to walk away. I feel like this good thing is going to drop and crash. In those moments, provide yourself the same sense of safety and love that you're seeking from the other person. And you do this not by just like lighting candles and sitting in a tub. You grew this by like sitting with yourself, calming your mind, rubbing your like literally, I will literally rub my hands on my body and say, I love you. You are calm. You are safe. Creating that sense of internal safety absolutely changes your outcome.
It's like Reiki therapy.
Sorry, what was that?
The only thing that has ever helped me with this, I think, is Reiki therapy.
Right. Yeah, I mean, it's beautiful. I haven't personally, like, I've experienced someone do Reiki for me. I've never practiced it, but there's so many different ways that if you work with the right, like maybe practitioner, or you are able to feel comfort and safety with trying a particular like method of something, as long as it can soothe your nervous system and make you feel safer and more grounded, that's what's important. But consistency is the key. Consistency is absolutely the key.
Right.
Amazing.
Thank you.
Thanks, Andy.
You're welcome. And I'll see you guys in Jupiter. I'm into Cresta all the time.
Hey, there we go. Stand up. Love it.
I was there like 2 weeks ago. So.
Awesome.
You got to let us know next time you're in town.
Yep.
Well,
We got to have a live show soon, so we're working on that.
awesome.
So you got to come
I'll
for
be
that. Awesome. Love it. Thanks for calling, Sandy. Thanks for listening.
there. Thank you.
We'll see you. All right, we got our last caller. Libby, you still there?
Yeah, I am. Can you hear me?
Yeah, what's
Yep.
going on, Libby?
Hi.
How are you guys doing today?
Very good.
Cool. I do have a few questions in regards to reparenting. So I understand, you know how like they always say you can't teach a dog new tricks, or kind of things like that, and how you're gonna have to reparent when you have your own kids, or like figure out a different way to become a parent. I love my parents, obviously. I think they raised me very well. I have a good shoulder on my head on my shoulders. However, I think they raised me in a way like where it was more tough love, which made me become a people pleaser in the long run. How do you, take back, I'm 24, so how do you take back 24 years of what you know and what you've learned? I thought it was, tough love was normal all around. So how do you take back what you've known for so long and adjust it in the future? I guess that's my question. And adjust it in the future, for when I have my own kids, and, the type of parent I want to be.
So that's a great question. And I've worked with people right until who are 75. I've had like psychologists come to me and be like, man, please, like what you're doing is something I need to be able to teach people. Teach me to do it for myself first. And they've been able to learn it. So first, I want to tell you, no matter what age you are and you're listening to this, there is always hope for you. Even if you have a day of your life left to live, you can live that day of your life better than you may have lived the ones before. And that is honestly enough. The sitting of like worrying and feeling regret for how we may have gone through a certain way, that's just another reason that we feel not motivated to change. So first, I want to say, like, you've got so much time ahead of you, and you're doing something so powerful here. But when you want to change anything, for example, you go back into the time that your parents raised you, and like we all have agreed, our parents showed up in the way they knew how, in the best way that they could. We have to recognize that. Even if they were emotionally unavailable, my mom, like I said, I experienced physical abuse. But as I dig into it, I realized that's all she was capable of because of her own demons. So first, we have to learn to separate that aspect and recognize an extremely powerful truth. I will always create the life in my future. I will always create a life based on where I am right now. So if I want to create a life of like, beautiful wife and kids and whatever else and be a different parent, I must learn to change where I am right now, so that can ultimately change what I create tomorrow, day after, and the day after that. Now, the next question comes, okay, then how can I change where I'm at right now, Yats? That comes by changing and working on yourself. I have so many parents, so many mothers who come to me and they're like, Yats, I need to learn to reparent or change and work with my child. And I was like, first, you need to learn to work with your own self. Because there's a child inside you that has been abandoned before you've been focusing on this child that you've now created. That child inside you needs your attention first, so that the child and the husband and everybody around you gets a whole different version of you. It will naturally happen. And so to do that, you must be patient and prioritize the techniques that dive into your subconscious mind. Now, that's what I said before. To get into your subconscious mind, you have to be able to like beat the resistance, what we call the ego. You can do that through repetition or continuous practice, or you can do that through meditation. And the more you get into meditation, the deeper that you're able to slow down your brain waves, the more you're able to influence yourself. Keeping this practice continuously and showing up, it is really simple. You know, it sounds like a really powerful and challenging topic because nobody's ever told us about this before. But if you can just simply find those moments where you always, like, you know, you catch yourself slipping up, for example, you catch yourself sabotaging relationships, pleasing people, before you step into that action, pause yourself, sit back and just say, will this action leave me with more love for myself or less love for myself? Will this action make me feel more happy with who I am or less happy with who I am? That already gives you the insight. Then you're like, okay, if it's not making me feel happy with who I am, what is it I can do for myself in this moment to create more of that happiness or that peace or whatever? For those of us who are people pleasers, it look like pulling back and say, you know what, I'm instead of texting my partner and saying, yes, I'll do everything for you, blah, 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 I'm just going to go for a walk. I'm just going to ground in my own energy. I'm just going to disconnect from that pattern. In fact, scientifically, whenever you're getting caught in a pattern, if you're able to disconnect your brainwaves for up to like 16 or 20 seconds from what it would normally do, you have the ability to now change its path. That's why going on a walk, reading a book, getting in the shower, all of those things are really helpful in breaking that pattern, because otherwise you'll just get into what you know, and then it's too far down that road. Mm-hmm. So breaking it up in these small moments and then jumping into this element of picking and visualizing your inner child, soothing them and loving them. And it's so beautiful when you practice it, because it really, I'm not lying to you guys, it really makes your heart swell up. You suddenly realize that you have so much love inside you, but the love doesn't have to be used as a way to attach to other people, get validation, prove yourself, nothing. It's just a state of existence. You feel so good in that moment, you can sit quietly with your eyes closed and you know the universe will give you what you need. Why? Because you finally said that you're worthy of it. But it takes that level of continuous practice and discipline, slowing down your mind. You know, every time we pick up our phone, how much we're pushing our minds to a point of saying, like, I'm addicted to the sense of like stimulus, validation, etc. How much I'm not willing to slow down my brainwaves. It's incredible. In today's life, we don't have any moments where we're willing to just sit quietly in silence. It's so hard because we need stimulus. So naturally, we're putting ourselves in a place where we cannot absorb change. Because what did I say? Change happens when the brainwaves slow down. So the more we put ourselves in a stillness through meditation, through quietening, through grounding, the more we can actually influence ourselves with that level of love.
Damn. I really like that answer. That was a good answer. Thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you for the question.
Hey, Libby, thanks for calling.
Yeah, thank you, guys.
I appreciate you coming on here. This was incredible. Yeah, I mean, it sounds like you have the answer to everything. Yeah. So I'm gonna hit you with one more question that maybe you have the answer to, maybe not. Mm-hmm. The girl I'm supposed to be with, have I met her or do I not know her yet?
Beautiful question. I believe your soul already knows that she's there in your atmosphere, but your mind is not letting you see that. And so your mind constantly focuses on what isn't here, what isn't coming, and so starts worrying about it, starts chasing other things, starts feeling a sense of scarcity rather than abundance. And so you lead yourself down a way that doesn't let you get or allow that person to come in. That person is there waiting for you. And when you're ready to receive them, they'll show up. But being ready doesn't look like what we think it does. It doesn't mean, oh, I'm 31 and I'm marriageable. It doesn't mean like, oh, now I've got my place in the house. It means being emotionally in love with yourself enough that you tell the universe, yes, I deserve this. Give it to me. That's something I've really seen with my own life. You know, in the last 2 years, I've manifested so much of amazing like success, I'd say, whether it was work, a beautiful relationship with someone who's really supportive, travel and the ability to go and live wherever I want. But it all had to come first with me learning to shed my old skin. And that's one of the hardest things for us to do because we're so used to it. We're so attached to it. And so it keeps what's in that vortex, it keeps what's in that atmosphere further and further away.
That's scary.
So it is. We are the only people who are in our own way. Do you know that?
Yeah.
The only people. And so the moment we learn to love ourselves and step out of our own way, everything comes to us seamlessly.
Yeah. Heard that. I know her. Here somewhere.
There's hope.
You want me to send you pictures? I'll send you pictures too.
Yeah. Send me who she is. but Yats, man, that was truly incredible. I wish you could see the chat. I mean, people are loving this. This was truly incredible. And please, whenever you want to come back, we'd love to have you on. We'll do a special Thursday episode, Wednesday episode, whenever you want to do it, man. You're always welcome back. Because they want to hear you. I want to hear you. I've learned so much from you. And I think you have an amazing message. And just to see the passion that you speak with, it's incredible to see. So it was truly an honor. And I can't thank you enough for coming on here. And that's episode 19 with Yats. Make sure y'all go follow him on the Inner Yats. And also talk about what you got going on. I know you have something coming up.
Yeah, we've got a bunch of things going on. We've got a retreat coming up in Bali in January for anybody who wants to jump on. It's going to be full of like reparenting. I see a team retreat happening right now.
Work trip.
You know how amazing it would be to do this show from Bali. Think about it.
Right.
Holidays are coming up. Christmas gifts.
But yeah, we basically specialize, me and my team specialize in reparenting. And so we have an 8-week program, which has become really famous because we teach people how to dive so deep into their subconscious minds and let go of that old self and learn to heal and love who they really are and to basically manifest the life they really deserve. So that program is called The Gauntlet. We take only limited numbers and it's limited times in the year. The next one's going to be in January. But what I do want to say, in the past, I used to be shy to say like, hey, follow me and stuff. I would never say that. But I realized that I'm blessed with a divine power and my mission is to be able to share this energy with the world, to show people that they truly are so fucking lovable and they have to let go of the wounds that prevent them from doing that. And so I would love if people really need that guidance, they want to learn to find themselves, they want to learn to connect with their own energies and learn to really recognize and rediscover their own value. Please follow me on Instagram. I'm more than happy to share that with you. All I'm doing is sharing with you what I've practiced on myself and has worked. And that's why I know it can change people's lives. So you can follow me on Instagram and there's so many meditations, so many videos. We have a lot of meditations on YouTube about reparenting, inner child connection, so much else. So, you're more than welcome to follow me if that's what you need. And if not, then I still have been fucking talking my ass off for the last year. And it's been great, to be honest.
No, I mean, he's a great follow, y'all. Make sure you check him out. Yats, dude, incredible. And make sure you go check out The Gauntlet in January if you can make it out there. I know I'm definitely going to try and make one of these trips happen. But Yats, like I said, whenever you want to come back on, please, the floor is always yours. And I can't thank you enough because I learned, everybody in the chat has learned, I think we've all learned here. You really touched a lot of people and you have an incredible power, an incredible gift. And I love to see you do what you do, man. So it's truly an honor.
Oh man, I really want to thank you guys for giving me this opportunity. And I want to say something a guru of mine said. I don't know if you've heard of this word, but the meaning of the word, it's a Sanskrit word. It says, the soul within me sees and salutes the soul within you. And what it's meant to say is that we are all basically the same. We're all just going through different parts of our journey at different times and have different triggers, etc. But we are all the same essence. And so when I get to talk to you, you guys may have said you've got so much value by me talking. I got so much value too. Hearing your stories, being able to remind myself of the stuff I need to do for me. So I want to put my hands together as they would do in India and say namaste to you and to say thank you to all you guys.
Namaste.
Thank you guys for this opportunity. It was amazing. It was so special. And I not just hope, I know we've influenced a lot of lives today and you guys need to give yourselves credit for that too. So
yeah, no, man. I can't thank you enough, man. So that's episode 19 of the Everybody But Me show with the man, the inner Yats. Yats, make sure you go check him out on Instagram. Thank you, brother. And you guys have a wonderful night. And make sure you check out The Gauntlet, check out his page to see what's going on. Yats, thank you. And we'll see you next week, Tuesday, 6 p.m. Eastern time. Same deal. Have a great night, y'all.